Hello, everybody. It's John Johnson, Coronation, with a reaction to bowl games thus far, which includes the college football playoff semifinals, which is kind of a weird thing to say since it's not really a tournament, but that's what they call it. The Big Ten so far is 3-0 in bowl games, with Northwestern beating Auburn 35-19, Wisconsin beating Wake Forest 42-28, and of course, Ohio State beating the living shit out of Clemson. 49-28, was that the score? Yeah, something like that. Does anybody care? It was an ass kicking. We'll get to that one in a little bit. Northwestern, the nerds. You know, they were missing a whole gob of players going into that game. Their second and third leading rushers, I believe, had transferred or decided to go on to other teams. Their best defensive back, I think, was gone. Their second best receiver. They were missing a gob of guys, and they still beat up an Auburn team that obviously didn't want to be there, because that's the bullshit excuse the SEC teams use when they lose bowl games, even when they're completely, utterly fucking destroyed in them, which we saw some of. And, congrats to the nerds. Nobody ever gives the nerds credit. They don't. Why? Because they're nerds. But Northwestern had a damn good football team this year. Their defense was incredible. And they had a veteran defense, and they kept people out of they did two things extremely well: turnovers and kept people out of the end zone. That was amazing. Great season by Northwestern. Good job, nerds. The ACC at this point is 0-4. Oklahoma State beat Miami 37-34 in a pretty good game. Wisconsin beat up Wake Forest 42-28. Notre Dame, which was a member of the ACC, got beat up by Alabama. No shock there. Maybe the shock was that Alabama didn't score more points. I thought they'd put up 45 against Notre Dame, but I thought Notre Dame's defense played reasonable, and their game plan of trying to run the ball and use the clock was a good idea. They made more mistakes, and it's Alabama. Let's not go on about that. Then there's Clemson. We're going to save that for a bit. The SEC, 3-2 at this point. Alabama, mentioned them. Georgia beat Cincinnati 24-21 with a last-second field goal. That was an excellent game. And it's really a shame that Cincinnati didn't win, because then they could have proclaimed themselves the 2020 national champions. You know, given that the Group of 5 team is never going to get into a college playoff, even if we expanded it to 16 teams, they would find a way to keep those teams out of the playoffs, out of the money, because you already know this, because the committee is run by old white men that love the status quo, and they're not sharing their money with anybody. That's just how it goes. Don't pretend that this is ever going to be fair, because it's not. Let's just move on. Anyway, the Georgia-Cincinnati game was one of the more fun bowl games to watch. And, I almost feel like Georgia isn't an SEC school, because I've always liked Georgia for some reason. I don't know why. Character flaw? Ooh, Florida. 55-20. Get your ass stomped into the ground by Oklahoma. I saw your Gator fan tweets during and after the game. It's not fair. It's the third best SEC team against the best Big 12 team. We're missing 9 starters. Let's pretend that you're the only fucking team this season that had to play a game when you didn't have players. God, Dan Mullen after the game said something to the effect of, the 2020 team played their last game 11 days ago or something, referring to the other game in which he got his ass stomped to the ground. Because I think Florida in their last 3 games gave up 623,000 points. Lost on their home field to LSU, got smashed by Alabama, and then they get smashed by Oklahoma. I get it. Florida. Wait. I was going to say they're a great team. No, they're not. They suck. The only reason they're ranked up there is because they're an SEC team, and every year there's this narrative, like Kellen Mond from Texas A&M tweeted that something to the effect of Ohio State, if they went through our schedule, would lose 15, 20 times because we're such a tough conference. No, actually you're not. You're all riding the coattails of one fucking team. You know? At least the Big Ten, the nerds went out and proved stuff in their bowl game, that they could win a bowl game. What's the rest of you guys? I mean, you always use the same excuse every time. You lose a bowl game, you didn't want to be there. And it's a narrative that stays intact because if you repeat the same bullshit over and over, people tend to believe it. And that's all what it is bullshit. You are a conference that is top-heavy, just like the Big Ten. Except that I'd argue that you have Alabama and you have a rest of these overrated piece of shit teams that aren't very good. Your Heisman Trophy quarterback threw 3 picks in the first quarter and spent a large part of the game on the sideline. And Dan Mullen, come on. You remember the last time? You remember years ago when Nebraska beat the shit out of Florida? Tom Osborne at the end of that game kneeled on the ball so he wouldn't score any more points. Otherwise, you would have had your worst defeat ever to us in a number 1 versus number 2 game. At the end of that game, Steve Spurrier was on the other sideline screaming at him to score more. Do you know why that is? Because Steve Spurrier, the old ball coach, had a fucking spine. That's why. Everybody in Nebraska loved to hate Steve Spurrier, but everybody respected him as a coach. Dan Mullen, you think you're going to beat Alabama when you have a coach who doesn't have vertebrae? It's not happening. Your program, your team, pathetic. Pathetic showing. Stop making excuses for yourself. And, you know, good luck. But not really. And then let's go to, Mississippi State. There's another SEC team. They beat Tulsa 28-26. And then they had a huge brawl, which was really embarrassing. Then there was a guy on Twitter who showed video of himself kicking a Tulsa player while he was on the ground and running away like a scared rabbit. I have no idea why that's something you'd be proud of, but good luck with your football team. Let's go back to Clemson. You know, Clemson got the living crap kicked out of them too by a damn good Ohio State team that I think is going to have a good showing against Alabama. Alabama is an offensive juggernaut. You know, I think their quarterback, their running back, and their wide receiver, that's 3. It's like playing a video game with them. But I think Ohio State is going to give us a better national title game than we think. Clemson, obviously, there's the big thing with Dabo Swinney ranking Ohio State number 11 and whining that they didn't play many games. And then you get the people that are out there going, well, Ohio State didn't play as many games, and they were more fresh, and they didn't have as many injuries. And okay, you know, I get that. That's one of those things you say because you're on this side. That's the narrative you have over here. The other narrative is they didn't play as many games, so they didn't get better, because you get better by playing games. You're going through reps, you know, actually doing things, not sitting around. So you pick this side because and then you pick this side because it's reality. You know, Ohio State didn't get a chance to play as many games this year, and they were rusty. Really. If you're watching this and you're going, why is a Nebraska guy making fun of Clemson on Florida when our team wasn't very good? And you'd be right. Nebraska wasn't very good this season. But Nebraska did 2 amazing things. Number 1, we fought hard to bring back Big Ten football just so Ohio State could beat the shit out of Clemson and maybe win a national title. Who knows? We'll see what happens in a few days. The other thing I'd point out is that if you want to make fun of Nebraska, I think Nebraska was more competitive against Ohio State than Clemson was in the games they played this season. Does that mean that Nebraska's better than Clemson? Could be. because nobody played out of conference games. So if you're looking at the ACC's record in bowl games in which they had to actually play other teams, the ACC didn't win anything. And, you know, one of the worst teams in the Big Ten, my Nebraska Cornhuskers, played better against one of the best teams than Clemson did. I'll leave you with that. You guys have a good day. Bye.